I'm going to let each of them have the floor for a few minutes to share their initial thoughts, and then we are going to sit down and discuss together. Okay, so up first, we're going to welcome to the stage Mainak. Mainak Mazumdar, Chief Data and Research Officer for Nielsen. So he's going to tell us his thoughts, right? And then in addition, we'll also welcome up now Adam Gerber, who's the Executive Director, Investment Strategy, GroupM. Okay, so let's have a seat here. Okay, great. Thank you both for joining me. It's nice to have you here. All right, so I think, Adam, you were going to go first.
Am I going first?
I think we could
I'm getting used to this new thing.
We could do
We're
rock,
keeping
paper,
it calm,
scissors.
though, right? I heard there were fireworks this morning, so I think we want to.
This is a peaceful. This is peaceful, right? So you're ruler of the world. You can redefine measurement. So, well, if you'd like to go first.
Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah. Okay.
So look, first, what I'd say is I'm not looking to blow anything up. I'm actually looking to refocus on the basics. And one of the things I'd suggest to everyone in the room that we start doing is chunking things down. Because I think that what we've allowed ourselves to do is make things way more complicated than they need to be. So I want to talk about kind of 5 basic principles that I think are important to how we evolve measurement, how we evolve kind of in service of the clients, ultimately, creating a better solution for the digital environment. So first, how do you define an impression? It's got to be an exposure that a human sees. That, in my view, that's kind of the most basic premise that we all have to focus on. I think we've deviated from that a bit in terms of how we've allowed device or household level comparability to kind of get intertwined with what really matters, which is people who have wallets in their back pocket. They're the ones who buy stuff. Phones don't buy things, people do, so let's focus on people. The second thing is we need to define what we're solving for. So people may have heard me talk about this in the past. It's not something that I've changed my opinion on. When we talk about currency or we talk about measurement, there are really 2 sides to that coin. There's what we're transacting, and then there's what we're valuing, and they're different. What we transact has to be a standardized, simple thing to define that's comparable and that's easily measurable. What we value can be different in the eyes of the beholder. I use the stock market as an example. Every company trades shares of stock, but every company has a different market cap, and the way that every trader or investor values the stock of a company is different, depending on the lens that they want to make that decision on. Earnings growth, debt to cash. There are all sorts of different ways of valuing a company. And so I think we need to start thinking in terms of what are we transacting versus how are we valuing it. The third thing is that we need to both compare and contrast, right? So if I think about the binary elements of what we're transacting, it's the person, it's was the ad rendered, not was it served, and what's the most minimal amount of time that it was available to be seen. The old opportunity to see concept, which is what television is rooted on, and any other kind of traditional media measurement service methodology is based on, really should continue to apply in our new world. It's about whether there was an opportunity to see. Now, all the qualitative elements, how long did the ad play through to completion for? What type of environment was it delivered in? Was brand safety a component of the evaluation? Those are all subjective, and every client, every category, every agency, every buyer, every seller is going to have different opinions on how those characteristics impact the value of an impression, and those should be completely detached from how we count. That's how we contrast things, but how we compare things, that needs to be rooted in an apples-to-apples basis. Fourth, let me ask a question. Anyone in the audience, have you bought a car recently? Raise your hand if you bought a car recently. Okay. Anyone in the market to buy a car? You're planning to buy a car in the next few months, even with the chip shortage. Okay. So you guys, if I was an auto marketer, you guys have no value to me anymore. Not probably for 3 or 4 years until you're ready to renew your lease or buy the next car. The gentleman out there who raised his hand, you're really valuable to me right now because I have a chance to sell you an auto, okay? But you know what? As soon as you buy it, you're with them. You don't have any more value to me. So a category like auto, long consideration cycle, long purchase cycle, value of the same people changes based on where you are in that purchase cycle. Now let's talk about Burger King. 3 different opportunities to eat every day of the week. Everyone has the same value to me all the time because I can sell you a burger every day. You're making that decision 3 times a day if you eat them for breakfast. So that's one way to think about kind of how to evaluate how an advertiser thinks about measurement and valuation. I'm still transacting impressions. I need to count things the same way, but people can have very different values to me at different points in time. Now let's talk about how that plays out from a creative perspective. So who likes Reese's peanut butter cups? All right, when you see that orange background pop up on your screen with the big peanut butter cup and the bite taken out of it, within about 2 seconds, your mouth is salivating, isn't it? Right? There's high brand awareness for that product. That ad doesn't need to do much work creatively. Now, who saw the Matt Damon Crypto.com ad? Who's seen it? The first time you saw that ad, did you know what the hell it was about until the last 3 seconds of the ad? No, you didn't know what that thing was about. They were climbing Mount Everest. They were going to Mars. It was Matt Damon. I'm watching it. I'm going, what is this about? And then the last 2 seconds of the ad, Crypto.com. Okay? That ad has to play to the end for it to make any sense to anyone. And even if it does, it still doesn't. But duration in that case mattered. Okay? So from a creative standpoint, you can see how that impacts how I value. So let me finish because I've gone way over.
No,
go ahead.
We have to separate what we're measuring. We've got to have comparability as media fragments. And most importantly, a topic that I haven't heard anyone talk about, although you may have this morning because I missed it, I want to tie back to something that a number of folks from my GroupM organization have talked about over the last couple days, and that's responsible investment. Measurement is not serving responsible investment today based on 2 things. Number 1, it's got to address data ethics and privacy. We need to have measurement systems that respect the end user. We don't do that well today. And number 2, it's going to sound strange when I say it, when we move to impression-based measurement and we have a system of census-level measurement and we're tagging everything and collecting data and processing data, and we have an inefficient system where buyer and seller are tagging the same thing with different tags to measure the same exact thing, guess what we're doing? Using a lot of electricity. It's totally inefficient. So let's fix that.
Great. Thank you. That was great. All right.
Mainak.
All right. Well,
Your turn.
no, I think you laid out what I call the use cases from the buying side, which is terrific because let me come to this from a measurement perspective, especially when it comes to impression. We believe that the impression is a great equalizer. It is, and I'll try to unpack that a little bit. We believe that impression-based currency, if done right, can give complete, precise, and representative measurement, which I think you are interested in, Adam. And more importantly, impression-based currency will accelerate comparability across platforms, devices, because that's where everything, the convergence come together. And we believe that that's, when you bring the impression in, you can start comparing with a single yardstick. And the other point is consistency. Because with the consistency, you are providing transparency and trust into the data layer. As you bring in a lot of data, there's going to be a lot of different computations and metrics, but if we start building off the backbone of impressions across platform and build those consistent metrics over time, that does build a trust, and I think it's important. Now, I think you brought up an interesting point where about impression can be all about transactions, right? But I think there is a big component of quality, which both audience as well as advertisers are looking for. And if you think about quality, there may be a couple of different ways to think about it. First, I would say content. Content does matter, right? Whether it's a studio or creator-produced content, it is important to recognize that audience and advertisers are going to be the one who will decide on the quality. Because they're the one, ultimately, they'll decide which brands will likely use filters to evaluate where to place their ads. We expect filters, to your point. You gave a lot of different examples of cryptos and so on and so forth. So we believe that brands are going to use their own strategies in terms of filtering and using filtrations and other types of viewability measurement. And obviously, we would love to work with them to make sure we incorporate that for our future product and services. The second piece, I got to hand it to you, it's very important, the audience piece, right? And why is audience is important? Because in the end of the day, audience is everything. And while counting, viewable and qualified impressions are important, is must, we got to bring the audience back into the impression counts. And it is important to understand who was the person that saw the impression. This is a real person. It's not a machine. It's not a screen. It's not a computer. There's a person or a family or individuals watching the content. And that's very, very important to tie the impression to real people. So the person-based impression that can be duplicated across platform, Adam, validated and verified, to your point, we believe that the future of impression-based currency. But the key is to make sure the people are in the equation, because otherwise it just becomes machine-to-machine traffic. I do want to talk about how we're getting there, because it is important topic, and I think it's a journey, because the different parts of the platform are in different parts of the journey. While the media industry has been using impressions for quite some time, and national has been on impressions for a while, as you know, the transition to impression for cross-platform is significant. And while it's predicated on a foundational metric like impression, which is well understood, applying it universally will be an adjustment and a process. And I think a lot of folks are working with us throughout the journey. But the good news here is that we are making progress. And end of last year, we announced Impression First initiative, where we are supporting industry-wide move to bring impression buying and selling in local television. We accelerated that by including the broadband-only homes. Now, for digital folks, it might sound different, but we have to do that to bring real cross-platform measurement, because linear, local, and national are important component of our cross-platform. So we had to bring that, do that ahead in the time. And finally, and more importantly, I'm happy to share that we just launched Nielsen One Alpha, which basically delivers a deduplicated ad impression measurement across linear TV, connected TV, browsers, and mobile platforms. So built on the foundation of Nielsen Identity Graph and big data, and calibrated by our panel, this product now allows advertisers like you, Adam, to measure and evaluate media across all these platforms for a qualified audience, which can be demographic targets, to your point, or auto intenders, or auto buyers, or crypto buyers, whatnot. That's where we are going to end up by end of the year. And I believe personally, and as a company representing Nielsen, we believe that Nielsen One creates a massive opportunity now in front of us to really accelerate impression-based buying and selling across platforms.
Great, great, thank you. Well, let's talk about industry alignment or lack of industry alignment, which I think is an interesting topic. I understand all the different initiatives around measurement coming from a variety of organizations. And I guess through one lens, it could be, it's a competitive set and perhaps we all want to differentiate, but it seems measurement is not the place you want to differentiate, right? You can differentiate through innovation and through ideation. There's plenty of places, creatively, you can innovate. So why can't we align on measurement? We know we need universal standards. You both were just talking about impressions. So weigh in on that. How do we align?
You want the honest answer, or do you want the?
Please lie to me. No, go ahead with an honest answer.
I'll go first again, or do you want?
Adam, you're here after 2 years, so you go first.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't align because there's a lot of money at stake. I mean, let's be honest. You've got an entire half of the media ecosystem that's trying to shift dollars from the traditional side. And the easier you make it to compare those two parts of the media landscape, the easier it is for me to shift money. So there's billions of dollars at stake. That's why we haven't agreed and aligned, because there's a bunch of people in the middle who don't want there to be alignment, or they want the alignment to be a certain way so that I can't make the comparisons across the entire landscape. I'll probably get fired for saying that when I get it back. But,
no, it's an important perspective.
Yeah, no, maybe I'll take a slightly different angle to this. If you think about the misalignment, I think it's because of disruption. Mm-hmm. It's basically disruption happening in the audience and consumer. If you think about, we are looking at our data, like over the Christmas, 183 billion minutes were spent on streaming, just 1 week. So 1/3 of TV consumption happens on streaming platforms. So think about this, and that has increased over the COVID. I think it used to be, I think it was 5 or 6%, now 33%. So there's a massive disruption going on. It creates a lot of opportunities in looking at the data measurement in a very differently. I think it's a great time to be, in many ways, to be part of this ecosystem where you have a lot of interesting data, a lot of disruption, and audiences their behavior is changing in front of you. So it's a massive time for innovation. So I think it's less about misalignment, but to me, it's just really trying to refocus in measuring people and not trying to get caught by machine-to-machine traffic tags and clicks and cookies and MAID and IDs and stuff, which we all do every day. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately there's a person behind this, and they are dictating which technology they're going to use, which platform they're going to pay for, where to subscribe, what to get free. So I think that's important construct that we forget, and the business part is important. But I think for me, I think the refocusing on people and measuring people is going to be as important as ever before, because it's an extremely fragmented market. But what's happening is the consumers are actually converging their viewing on one platform. Imagine like a few years back, you need to have a cable subscription to watch something. But now the same cable the same programs are available on multiple platforms. Movies, box office. Some of them are not going to box office, they're going directly to streaming platforms. This is a massive change, business change. So I think it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Mm-hmm. And we've heard a lot today and yesterday around the people focus, and that being incredibly important, and definitely how disruption has created waves throughout the measurement ecosystem, for sure. That makes perfect sense. So as you two are thinking about sort of the future of measurement and how you would go about it, do you have any sort of practical application of how to bring that vision to life? Do you have any sort of practical roadmap of how we would get there?
Look, we are very excited about Nielsen One. As I said, we have been working through the broadcast, local, linear part of the ecosystem and bringing them across to the impression. And we have done that. Now we launched the alpha in Nielsen One, which allows basically an advertiser or marketers like Adam to really measure ads across all these platforms and deduplicate it. So which is very exciting. I think this journey is going to move from ads to content, where you have similar way to even evaluate and measure a content. So that's exciting for us, and exciting. I think it's exciting for industry, given that we're talking about impressions.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll reinforce some of the things that were said yesterday. Krishan, I think, in his remarks, said it best around collaboration. And the only way that we're all going to win as an industry is if everyone accepts the fact that no one has the full solution, and everyone has to make their data interoperable. We need it to flow into platforms and systems so that it can be commingled, so that it can be leveraged in ways that whoever the user is wants to use the data. And unfortunately, we don't have that today. We've got walled gardens. We've got a lot of restraints on data use. We have to do all of that in a way that respects the consumer, but we do need a kind of mantra as an industry to open up the gates and allow data to flow from one place to the other so that we can see the whole picture. And I think, the point that Mainak has made about deduplication is one of the most critical things that is missing in today's landscape as it fragments, both across devices and across time and across, whatever other dimension you want to think of in terms of fragmentation. We've got to be able to see people holistically across everything they do so that we know when and how we've reached them. Given the way that media has fragmented and sales channels have collapsed and the way that advertising is sold today, we've got to have a much better view into the person and how they're being delivered by the campaign, not within the silo of the media company or the silo of the platform that the inventory is being controlled by.
Great. Now, this is great. I think we have time for one more question, and I'm going to ask you to predict the future. Good, bad, ugly. Where will we be on this topic in 5 years? What will measurement look like in 5 years?
I mean, I think it's going to look really different. That's for sure. I don't know if I'll still be around to be talking about it, but no, look, I think the next part of this discussion is around attention. And I also think that another part of this conversation is going to be about a lot of things that we haven't figured out yet in terms of the type of media experiences that consumers engage with. There were a lot of jokes about the metaverse yesterday. Yeah. Is it bullshit? Is it not bullshit? Is it real? Is it going to happen? I look at what's happening in the gaming space. I look at what's happening with some of the new forms of media that consumers are engaging with. They don't look like anything like what I experience today and what our current advertising models support, and I expect advertising to look very different in 5 years. We're going to have new forms of measurement, and we're going to have to figure out ways of comparing those new experiences and those new types of ad experiences with the traditional models that we have today. I think there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm just going to go to basics. I think the quest for measuring people is still going to be as important as it is today, because to take your example on metaverse, it's, you have proxy on avatars, right? So I think the proxies are the one that comes into play as a new technology evolves. So we constantly have to validate those proxies with people. And I think what you're seeing now is basically a journey where we are constantly validating clicks and tags and machines and browsers or IDs with people. And even in future, I believe that we'll continue this journey. It's just going to get more exciting because there are going to be more different use cases to work with. Yeah.
Great. Great. Well, thank you both so much. It's very interesting. And we'll have you back in 5 years on this stage, and we'll see if you were, see who was right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.